As Congress works to move their reconciliation bill forward, reductions to federal benefits may be inevitable. Here with more details on what might be included, National Active and Retired Federal Employees Association Vice President for Policy and Programs, John Hatton. John, thanks so much for joining me today.
Thanks for having me.
Well, I know the topic on everybody's mind is the potential cuts to federal benefits that's going on in the discussions about the budget reconciliation. It's got to be top of mind for NARF's constituents. What are you hearing?
So the House Oversight and Government Reform Committee passed a package out of their committee to go to the House Budget Committee that'll then get combined with what other committees put together for this large budget reconciliation package. And we knew this was coming. The budget resolution set targets for them to cut $50 billion from programs under their jurisdiction, and this is basically all they have. So what they wound up having in their package that they sent was increasing retirement contributions for current federal employees up to 4.4%. They phased that in over 2 years. They exempt those subject to mandatory retirement, eliminating the FERS annuity supplement, which people get before they're eligible for Social Security if they retire early. Our biggest concern with that is it would apply as of the date of enactment. So you have some people who maybe took this deferred resignation offer, and if this passes in July, for example, and they're planning to retire September, they've accepted an offer, and all of a sudden part of that offer essentially gets rescinded by Congress. That is exempted for those who are forced to retire early due to mandatory retirement, but not if you're subject to it. So if you are forced to retire at age 57, but you are 55 and 20 years of service and you could retire, this would be eliminated. But if you had to retire at age 57, it wouldn't.
So that makes it pretty complicated for even individuals trying to figure out where they fit on that timeline. Yeah.
And it's just frustrating how they're applying this to people in some of these positions and so close to retirement. Go ahead.
Would it rescind the mandatory retirement if someone took it and then the terms changed after they took it? Does that invalidate the retirement?
It doesn't change anything. They're not changing anybody's retirement who's already retired. But it does change the bargain, and it applies essentially to what your past service is. So you've already earned these retirement benefits by working 10, 15, 20, 30 years, and now just right before you're eligible or right before you're about to retire, part of what you have earned is clawed back by Congress here under this proposal. And that also applies to switching from the high 3 to high 5. They do have the date of enactment for that to be January 1st of 2027, so a little bit of a pushback, but still there's people who may become eligible in the next, in 2027 or want to retire that and they've earned most of these benefits already through their work. It also tries to target the merit-based civil service. It gives people leaving their probationary period a great choice. You can either be at-will employee and not have merit-based civil service protections, or you can take a 5% pay cut through an increase in retirement contributions. It also has a fee for appeals to the Merit Systems Protection Board. So that's what's in the package, and we'll see where it goes.
What are you hearing about support from both sides of the aisle or opposition?
So every Democrat in committee opposed it. I would expect every Democrat to oppose this provision in this overall budget reconciliation bill, which is being drafted in partisan lines. In the Oversight and Government Reform Committee, one member of the Republican side of the aisle voted against it, Mike Turner from Ohio. He has a lot of federal employees in his district. He's Wright-Patterson Air Force Base is around him, so there's a lot of civilian feds. We've heard that other people – he also indicated in his committee remarks that he's talked to people on the floor that are opposing these provisions. We've talked to a few people that have expressed concerns. Another member of the committee didn't vote for it. We heard that might have been because of concern for these provisions. So not on record as opposing, but not supporting. So we're certainly trying to push back as hard as we can, embolden that opposition within the Republican conference. Where it goes from here, I'm still not sure. Are they going to scale it back, potentially push back the effective dates of these things, potentially add exceptions, potentially phase it in longer? I don't know. We don't know the details of what they're considering right now. Possible it gets taken out completely too.
But then they're not going to meet their $50 billion target, are they?
Well, the Oversight Committee has met their target, and the Budget Committee, I think will compile it, but there could be an amendment before it goes to the floor if they have the votes cobbled together. So, they may have to accept different changes in their tax package to account for this. In the grand scheme of the overall package, I don't think the number of $50 billion is going to sink it or swim it. So, there's conservatives on the far right. They're requiring a certain amount of spending cuts to support this package. And so it's going to increase the deficit anyway. The package is looking at 4 to 4.5 trillion decrease in revenues, offset with 1.5 to 2 trillion in spending cuts. So the $50 billion as part of that is not a huge percentage of it. So they can probably make something work without it. I think they should try to find a way to make something work without it. But every little bit of spending cuts that they take out adds up. And if they don't have enough spending cuts to offset and mitigate that deficit increase, they're going to have problems on the far right. Of course, in the middle, you're going to have problems with this provision. There's problems with the Medicaid cuts that are included. There is a SALT caucus that's concerned about what exemptions there are for state and local tax deductions. So there's a lot of different moving parts within these larger negotiations, and that's just in the House. So we haven't even gotten to the Senate yet. So
I'm speaking with John Hatton, the Vice President for Policy and Programs at NARF. John, let's shift gears a little bit just to leave that budget discussion behind. You're hearing about OPM moving to digital retirement processing. Tell us about what's going on there.
Yeah, there's a memo by OPM to agencies that says effective June 2nd, everything needs to be sent over via an online retirement application or started that way. And then basically the last ones they'll accept in paper format are July 15th. And so there's a specific online retirement application for agencies serviced by the National Finance Center, Interior's Business Center, I believe. So in our mind, this is a good move. They've previously piloted an online retirement application. They've been in a paper-based process for a really long time. That leads to slow processing. That leads to delays for federal retirees getting their earned annuities, and potentially overwhelms their call center because people are calling asking what's going to happen, and that leads to delays in processing other transactions. So we've been supportive of modernization for a really long time. I think with this, we're not celebrating yet. We want to see how it acts in practice. And so we've seen other attempts at modernization occur and fail. And so we're certainly rooting for this to succeed, make the process smoother, quicker, more efficient, and effective for federal retirees.
Are there enough people and systems left at OPM to actually make this work?
That is another question, and we are concerned. A lot of people have taken the deferred resignation offer at OPM. There's also going to be a huge influx of retirements, which with people taking voluntary early retirements through these large-scale reductions in force. People have taken, in other agencies, not just OPM, the deferred resignation offer, so they may have a retirement date of September 30th. So the influx of claims is going to be very large. The staff is probably going to be less. And so a lot is relying on this working. And without seeing it test and work in practice, I'm not confident it's going to work yet, but we'll see.
And what does it mean for people who are sort of in the middle of the retirement application process right now? Do they need to start over?
Not that I'm aware of. There's been no indication. They have kind of, if you haven't started your application process yet, or if you've already started before June 2nd, then you can go and the direction from OPM does not apply to you. It applies to any application started from June 2nd on. And then there's a little bit of time there to, a month and a half about to make sure that, if you haven't sent it over to OPM by July 15th, then, you got to start over maybe. But yeah, it's a moving forward process.
Well, there's certainly a lot to think about as people are in the middle of really stressful decisions about their future with the government and perhaps their future benefits. John Hatton, Vice President for Policy and Programs at NARF, thanks so much for joining me today.
Thank you for having me.
We'll post this interview at federalnewsnetwork.com/Federal Drive. Hear the Federal Drive on demand. Subscribe wherever you get your podcasts.